I'm Jim McKay reporting to you from the pit area. Down here we have the fastest field in the history of motor racing, of any kind, any place, any time, poised and ready for the start of this year's Firecracker 400. The fastest qualifier was Leroy Yarborough with a speed of more than 178 miles an hour. Almost unbelievable, but it's true. Now, working with us again today as our expert commentator will be the two-time Indianapolis champion and our colleague here at Wide World of Sports, Roger Ward.
Thank you very much, Jim. Certainly a pleasure to be back in Daytona Beach.
Looks like it'll be a pleasure to see this race today.
Well, it is, and actually with the sky slightly overcast, it might not be as difficult for the drivers as we'd originally thought.
That's very true. Now, also working with us again today will be our colleague and the editor of National Speed Sport News, Chris Akatamaki. Let's check in with Chris.
Thanks, Jim. This car, a 1966 Dodge Charger, is the pole car, driven by Leroy Yarborough. It was here in February and qualified at 172 miles an hour. For the 400 today, it is qualified at better than 178 miles an hour, a 1/6 and 2/10 mile an hour speed difference, due in great part to the addition of a new part, a Hemi Charger spoiler. What it does actually is take the air flowing over the rear deck, kick it upward, and create turbulence over the trunk lid, thus forcing the back end of the car onto the track without adding any weight. Makes the car much more stable and easier to handle, and of course faster. Aerodynamics are a great part of stock car racing today. Richard Petty's car is a 64, for the simple reason that a 1964 Plymouth is more aerodynamic than a 1966. One of the many interesting stories of today's Firecracker 400.
We took our thermometer and put it in the cockpit of Yarborough's car to see what kind of heat he'd be experiencing. It only goes to 120 degrees, but it burst inside the seat of the car, so the boys are going to be in for a hot race as the clouds disappear. The crowd has turned out in record numbers. 39,000 turned out last year for the 400. This year, over 46,000 are in here to see this 160-lap race in typical Bill France weather. And they'll be seeing on the track in action some of the top stock car drivers in the nation, like Leroy Yarborough here, the pole sitter. Darrell Derringer of Charlotte, North Carolina, a veteran stock car campaigner, and old pro Buck Baker, whose son Buddy is in the race too. USAC champion Mario Andretti is here, and his two-time 500 winner, Richard Petty. They'll also be seeing lovely Carol Kelly, who last night was crowned Miss Dixie 1966 in the very popular Dixie Frolics here in Daytona Beach. And now the field has been given the signal to start their engines, to move out on the track for the parade and pace laps. Making up the front row, Leroy Yarborough in his 66 Charger number 12, and Richard Petty in the 1964 Plymouth number 43. In the second row, Curtis Turner of Charlotte in a 66 Chevelle number 13, and Sam McQuagg of Columbus, Georgia in number 98, a 66 Charger. The third row, Cole Goldsmith of Munster, Indiana in a 66 Plymouth number 99, and popular Jim Hurtubise of North Tonawanda, New York in a 66 Plymouth bearing his familiar number 56. Now we'll be back for the start of the Firecracker 400 in a moment.
Again, we're back at the Daytona International Speedway. Jim McKay reporting along with Roger Ward. And there you see the cars as they near the starting line. In the first row will be Richard Petty in car number 43 and car number 12, Leroy Yarborough, who won the pole position. Now, in stock car racing, when you win the pole, you can either pick that inside position or the outside. And at the last minute, Leroy decided to change and take the high or outside position. I wonder why, Roger.
Well, he probably figured he's got a better shot at getting to the first turn first. And certainly that would be important.
Okay, well, the green flag is in the starter's hand, but he has not unfurled it yet. Questionable whether we're going to have a start or not.
Pace car is pulled off. Looks like
this is it. There they go. Leroy Yarborough in the lead as they go into the first turn, but Richard's right alongside him, and now Petty is going for the lead. The first four cars all bunched up are Richard Petty and Leroy Yarborough, Sam McQuagg and Curtis Turner, and now it's Sam McQuagg trying to move into second place ahead of Richard Petty. Curtis Turner is fourth, but it's Petty side by side with Sam McQuagg for second place, and now McQuagg has taken second on the backstretch and is going for the lead, trying to pass Leroy Yarborough, and he's got him. Sam is really moving.
Yes, he certainly is, and Curtis Turner has moved into third spot and now challenging for second.
That's right. So we have Sam McQuagg in the lead. Leroy Yarborough still second, but Curtis Turner moving up on the low side there. That's Curtis Turner, side by side. Tremendous traffic jam as they come to the end of the first lap of the Firecracker 400. Sam McQuagg is the leader. Leroy Yarborough about an inch and a half ahead of Curtis Turner for second place. Richard Petty back in the third row now.
Looks as though Paul Goldsmith has moved up and now trying to pass Richard Petty.
There you see Curtis Turner. Saw for a moment Curtis Turner and Leroy Yarborough side by side. Going into the backstretch now, the fastest part of the race course. They'll be up around, well, after a couple of laps, maybe 180 miles an hour along that ride.
Well, they certainly will be running well into the 175, 176 mile an hour bracket.
Richard Petty has now taken second place again. It's Sam McQuagg, Petty in second place. Turner and Yarborough are still absolutely side by side, but now battling for third, not for second. And Paul Goldsmith is right behind them. Yarborough moving ahead a little bit. Mario Andretti has now moved into the fight. Great Indianapolis driver, Mario Andretti has moved into fifth position and is trying to get through the pack. Andretti driving a 1966 Dodge Charger. As for the other lead cars,
Looks as though Sam McQuagg has opened up a little lead with Richard Petty just a few car lengths back, and then there must be 15 car lengths between them and the third place car.
Sam McQuagg holds a slim lead over Leroy Yarborough, both in those exceptionally fast 1966 Dodge Chargers. Third place is Richard Petty in the 2-year-old Plymouth. Down the back straightaway, Boulevard smooth, and in the opinion of many drivers, the fastest ride in stock car racing today. Heading into that high bank, 31-degree, turn 3. Buddy Baker in car number 3 is giving Darrell Derringer number 16 a tow. Derringer is driving Bud Moore's Comet, a small car, and he said earlier after qualifying 15th fastest that he was going to have to draft all day. We talked to him about that.
Well, I'll tell you, there's about 6 or 7 boys that are running real close to 177 to 178 mile an hour race setup. It's going to be hard to outrun those boys.
You're going to have to draft all day long.
I'm going to do my best to hang on to everybody who comes by. If I can catch them in traffic or something, I'm going to try to grab on those Plymouth and Dodges and go.
What about driving in this particular style? Do you have to keep one eye in the mirror all the time?
Yes, because you might draft by a car, and of course, as soon as you get by him, he'll sneak right back by you if he can. So you definitely you got to watch him back as much as you do in front so you won't get in anybody's way.
And there's Darrell still drafting on Buddy Baker in car number 3. Really getting a fast ride. Leroy Yarborough has retaken the lead from Sam McQuagg. And of course, Richard Petty is running in a very comfortable third spot. But the real battle is for fourth place.
So that's the way they remain, Roger, with that fine battle for the lead between Sam McQuagg and Leroy Yarborough. Richard Petty sitting back there by himself, and then that wild group, Curtis Turner, Mario Andretti, Buddy Baker, Darrell Derringer, and Paul Goldsmith. It's an interesting situation.
Well, it certainly is. It looks as though Petty is just sitting there waiting for an opportunity to take over the lead, and of course that group in the back are really scrambling.
They are, but now the 2 cars in front can draft on each other a little bit there, can't they? And similarly in the big group.
Well, that's true. Actually, Petty isn't far enough back that he would be out of the draft, but just far enough to stay out of trouble in case something happens up there.
So he's got himself in a real cool position, as you might say. But those other guys back there are certainly in a position to move up.
Yes, I would say, however, that both McQuagg and Leroy have a little edge on the rest of the field, or at least that group in the back, but Petty looks like he's in a good spot.
Of course, car number 13 is that one driven by Curtis Turner, which is the Chevelle, challenging this whole platoon of Chrysler products out there.
And there, Mario Andretti in the number 5 Dodge Charger moving up to the pack goes by Curtis Turner in the smoky Unix Chevelle to take over 4th place. He started a good ways back in the pack. The action is fast and furious as it has been right from the start of this event. And there's McQuagg regaining the lead from Leroy Yarborough in a really close going. These fellas are really on top of one another. The pressure is on all the while here at Daytona in the Firecracker. Look at the back end hanging out there. Roger, they're really letting the back end get out, aren't they?
They certainly are, and I haven't seen such an exciting race for a long time, and there's trouble on the banks.
Yeah, G.C. Spencer has exploded his engine, and the flywheel of the car has run out, and Bobby Johns has run over that flywheel and just about torn his left front wheel off. We've never seen an engine go so much. The whole engine just disintegrated right in front of Bobby Johns and his Chevelle. Spencer's coasting around. Man, did that engine ever shell out, as they say in racing. Johns, who has always had tough luck here at Daytona, is safe. He's out of the car, and there's the yellow flag.
And now, because of that crash, here are all the leaders coming into the pits, taking advantage of the yellow caution flag once again.
Yes, and this certainly could have a bearing on the finish because some of these cars won't be able to go the distance without making 5 pit stops.
And they'd all planned on 4 before the race began.
That's right.
Okay, well, there they are, all in the pits, something that could affect the race very much.
Leroy Yarborough is presently in the lead with Sam McQuagg trying desperately to get up there to give him a bid for that lead.
It's a real high-speed shuffle going on, Roger. As you can see, the first echelon comes around the corner there, and they are really bunched, amazingly so, for this stage of the race. And down that backstretch, they're really moving.
Yes, and there's Sam McQuagg going back into the lead. And as we have it now, the standings will be Sam McQuagg in a Dodge Charger in first position with car number 12, Leroy Yarborough in second, also in a Dodge, with Jim Pascal in car number 14 in third position, with Mario Andretti in car number 5 in fourth position.
That's the way things stand up to this moment, then, in the Daytona Firecracker 400. We'll be coming back here, of course, but right now let's move on to the Detroit River and Bill Fleming.
And Sam McQuagg and Ray Nichols, number 98 Dodge Charger, still has the lead. But right now, a close second, thanks to pit stops, is Jim Pascal of High Point, North Carolina, and Tom Friedkin, 66 Plymouth, which is so close to the wall right now. He had a high ride in that corner. Showing in third place on the scoreboard now is Buddy Baker, the second-generation speed star from Charlotte, North Carolina, in Ray Fox's year-old Dodge. There's McQuagg blistering the track, going by the start-finish line one more time. And now, Pascal seems to be losing a little bit of ground, Roger.
He certainly does. Actually, it looked as though something must be wrong with his automobile because Buddy Baker has just passed him for second place, and there's Mario Andretti right behind him, almost ready to pass him too. And now it looks as though Mario Andretti has picked up the draft of Buddy Baker, and he may try to pass him as they go down the back straightaway, and he does. And of course, right behind them is Gerald Derringer in that Comet, really sticking in there. At the moment, however, we have action in the pits. Looks as though David Pearson has made an unscheduled pit stop. Chris, see if you can get a few words with David.
Hello, David. Well, the water temperature start off, Chris. It's about 320 in the water. The temperature just going slamming over, about 250. There you have David Pearson with overheating problem.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. And of course, there's Mario Andretti solidly in second position. And Leroy Yarborough has been making a great move. Actually, he's come through the pack and is now in third position, hot after car number 5, Mario Andretti. There's Leroy, lapping an automobile, trying to get up there to pass Mario Andretti. Going to be a battle for second. There's Leroy. He's getting by underneath Mario Andretti.
Yes, he's moved into second place, Roger, and a great drive. He's come from a good ways back in that John Thorne Dodge Charger. And Yarborough, who started on the pole with a record run, was quite confident before the start of the race, and we had a chance to chat with him then about his plan.
I've been playing with my car quite a bit in traffic, and it seems like I can drive the car 175 or 76 in a draft, and it just runs so easy till you just might see me doing a lot of drafting today.
In other words, you'll be content to let someone else lead.
I believe so.
When will you make your move?
Well, somewhere along the line, things will start working out to where you know what you got to do at a later date.
And as you can see, that's the way the draft works because Leroy, even though he was able to move up through traffic and quite easily pass Mario, there's Mario really hanging on and taking advantage of that draft. And as a matter of fact, probably making an attempt to pass Leroy.
Look out. That is Mario Andretti emitting large clouds of smoke, and I think we know what that means, Roger.
Yes, it looks as though he must have blown his engine, and of course, this is very unfortunate. He was doing a great job running in there in third spot, and it looked as though he had a good chance to win.
It sure did, but Mario, although he won the USAC championship last year, he's got a long history of these second places or breakdowns, doesn't he?
Well, that's true. Of course, Mario doesn't have too much experience on this racetrack, but as the race progressed, it looked as though he was learning the track and doing a fine job. And, of course, he won the championship last year with just good, consistent finishes.
Well, Andretti's obviously headed for the pits, so I'm going to get down there and see if I can't find out just what his trouble was. We'll be back with more action from the Firecracker 400 in a minute.
What happened, Mario? I think the engine let go.
How were you doing up to that point?
The car was running beautiful, and I was just feeling my way around in the draft, with the other fellas. And it's a shame.
Mario Andretti out of it.
And a shame it really is. Tough break for a great young driver. But on the racetrack, Sam McQuagg is your leader. In second place, Leroy Yarbrough in car number 12, a real duel.
That's right, Roger, but the interesting point right now is that four-way battle for third place. Buddy Baker in car number 3 holds the spot now, but right behind is Paul Goldsmith in number 99, Jim Pascal in car 14, and Darrell Derringer in that number 16 Comet. Roger, what about that Comet riding up there?
Well, to me, this is really an amazing story because this automobile has to be 3 or 4 miles an hour slower than the other automobiles, and yet taking advantage of the yellow flag and doing a really great job of driving. Darrell is in a very challenging position.
Well, there's Buddy Baker in car number 3 doing a great job riding in third place and perhaps gaining on the leaders. They're using the combined horsepower here to gain ground. And Goldsmith is an old smoothie, too. Got his racing start on the two-wheelers. Was a former motorcycle champion before switching to the four-wheel cars. There's Baker heading for the backstretch.
Watch it, somebody in trouble between the first. It's Richard Petty between the first and second turns, and it looks like the car is going to be okay, by which I mean it stayed within the racetrack, but that's about all.
That's right. It looked as though for a moment he was going to be in serious trouble because the other car running into him, of course, could have injured him.
It looked very similar, as a matter of fact, for a moment there to the crash we saw at Darlington when Cale Yarborough went right out of the racetrack.
Yes, the car could have climbed up on it and gone over the wall, but fortunately these walls are very high and very stout.
That happened very quickly, Roger, and he is not battling for the lead. However, I saw you had your eye on it. What do you think might have happened?
Well, it's difficult to say. He might possibly have run over something and punctured a tire, or perhaps he lost the engine. It's difficult to say.
Okay, but the favorite is out of the race. Richard Petty has had it.
And as the pace car pulls off and the green flag is displayed, the race is underway once again. And believe me, there's plenty of action on the track. Now to Petty and Chris Economaki.
Here's Richard Petty back from the field hospital. Are you all right, Richard?
Yeah, all right, I blew the engine and the piece got under the tire and blew the tire all at the same time. The front hit the wall and I got my hand cut getting out of the race car.
Is the car pretty well finished?
It pretty well totaled it out. It's a bad shot.
Well, better luck next time. Richard Petty, out of the race.
His report on the official speed of the race up to this point, Roger, 147.695, which is well under the record set by A.J. Foyt 2 years ago.
Yes, actually, with the number of laps under the yellow flag, they'll have a difficult time breaking that record.
They certainly will, but that is the only reason that they are running at so slow a pace, because those cars are moving out.
They certainly are, much faster than I've ever seen them go here, and of course, the race has been very competitive to this point.
Well, there the Chevelle had its moment of glory and was in the lead, but Sam McQuagg pushes number 98 back into the number 1 position, moving Curtis Turner to second. Buddy Baker is still third, and Darrell Derringer is fourth. Well, the slow-talking gentleman from Columbus, Georgia, Sam McQuagg, who has been out front most of the way in the Firecracker 400, is out in front now in number 98. A close second, however, is Curtis Turner in the number 13 Chevelle. Buddy Baker is third in car 3. Darrell Derringer is fourth in car 16. Jim Pascal fifth in car 14. And early leader Leroy Yarborough next in car number 12. The battle for third, however, really interesting and hot, with Buddy Baker there in 3 and Darrell Derringer second, right behind him, rather, in car 16.
Roger, certainly one of the big stories of this race is the tremendous competition that these powerful Chrysler factory-entered cars are getting from the independently entered Comet of Darrell Derringer and the Chevelle of Curtis Turner.
Well, of course, these engines are not supposed to have the same horsepower, and actually, they haven't run quite as fast as the big Chrysler products, but they're certainly giving them a good go for their money today.
They certainly are that, and Darrell Derringer in particular has been doing a tremendous job at drafting.
Yes, because his speed was down to about 174 miles an hour, and he's able to keep up with these cars by drafting.
He was that slow, huh?
That's
174.
Right. pretty slow. Well, there they are, going down the back straightaway. Buddy Baker in car number 3 with Derringer on the outside trying to get by, and he has gotten by. And Jim Pascal right there behind him, a very close 4th position right now.
Boy, that's hot action coming off the number 4 turn there. It's a little bit of a bump in the track. Look at this, almost 3 wide as they head for the start-finish line. There's the Comet ahead now of Buddy Baker as they head down that straightaway into the number 1 corner here.
You know, the positions change so fast in this race. About the time you get a train of thought to say something, someone else has changed positions and you hardly know what to say.
Well, it's also you don't know where to look the way these cars are acting up on the track, but the speed has been tremendous. And here they come in squadron formation down that backstretch. And they'll be coming in for the pits pretty soon for that final gas stop, and no yellow flag apparently this time to help them out. There's Baker now on the top side, going back around, number 16 for 3rd place. The battle for 3rd is really hectic here. Right now, number 3 position belongs to youngster Buddy Baker, with Darrell Derringer right behind in 4th hole.
And that car right behind him is number 14, Jim Pascal.
There is Leroy Yarborough into the pits, and a real tough break for a fellow who drove a tremendous race today.
Well, he certainly has, and this is a tough break for him. You can see that tire is really chewed up, and it's a wonder he didn't get into the wall. I suppose the reason he didn't is because of that inner tire that kept him out of the wall, and even though he blew the outside tire, the inside tire kept him from losing control and getting into the wall.
However, as we can see here, both inside and outside and every part of that tire is now completely shredded. This fellow, as you said, however, drove a tremendous race today. He was the fastest qualifier, remember, with a speed of more than 178 miles an hour, and with a little bit of luck, he could have been the winner.
He certainly could have. He was driving a great race and had a good chance. Well, there goes car number 14, Jim Pascal, for his last fuel stop.
And Buddy Baker, who drove so brilliantly and was riding 3rd, appears now to be out of it with the Dodge. A tough break for an up-and-coming young driver.
And into the pits now, car number 13, Curtis Turner, and of course this should be his final stop. Actually, the only car that hasn't stopped now is the Comet. Let's go to Chris Economaki in the pits for that story.
One more, Darrell Derringer's car owner is apparently going to gamble. Bud, you're gambling now? We're gambling. We're trying to stretch our gas stops real bad. How many miles do you expect him to get out of this last tank full? I hope he gets 90 miles or 91 miles. If we do, we'll make it. How many miles have you gotten before? Well, we've been running about 80 miles, and we had about 5 gallons of gas left, so I think maybe we'll make it. I don't know. Right now, he just picked up a draft with Jim Pascal, and I hope he'll just use his head and stay right behind him, and that'll save gasoline. Well, they're shooting crap in the Comet pit.
Well, they certainly are. But your leader on the track is Sam McQuagg in car number 98. And now in 2nd place, as a result of those pit stops, number 16, Darrell Derringer. We'll be back with the conclusion in just a moment.
The climactic laps of the Firecracker 400, and the big question burning in everyone's mind now, and especially in Darrell Derringer's, is will he have enough gas to finish? He's gambling the long shot. There he is now, car 16. He's running 2nd. He's right behind the 3rd place car, Jim Pascal's, and he's getting a tow. Roger, what kind of mileage help will this be?
Actually, that ought to increase his mileage some 10 to 15%. And with a little luck, he could go the distance.
There's the white flag being waved by Johnny Bruner, and there, in Ray Nichols' number 98 Dodge Charger, is Sam McQuagg. Right behind, a lap or so behind, is Jim Hurtubise, the popular USAC star. McQuagg has dominated this race. He's leading now Curtis Turner, or rather Darrell Derringer in car 16, Jim Pascal in 14, and Curtis Turner is 4th in the Chevelle. The compacts have showed well here at Daytona today. And now McQuagg goes into traffic and off what should be his final turn of the track before victory.
And so the 1966 Firecracker 400 is just about to be history. Sam McQuagg, Rookie of the Year last year, really moving into the big time with his first really important NASCAR victory. A tremendous performance by this fellow all afternoon.
Well, he certainly drove a great race and gets all the credit.
He certainly should. And here we have the strange situation of the car that's going to finish 2nd, perhaps, having run out of gas and trying to coast to the finish line. McQuagg crosses the winner, but Darrell Derringer trying not only to coast to the finish, but to the coast to the finish before anybody can catch up with him, and it looks like he's going to do it.
Yes, I think he's going to. As a matter of fact, they've already thrown the checkered flag on car number 13 and car number 14, so they'll be slowing down, and if he gets across the finish line, he'll get the checkered flag in second place.
And there is Darrell to the finish line, finishing second behind Sam McQuagg in the Firecracker 400. Now I see that Chris Economaki is down there with Sam McQuagg in victory lane. Let's go down to Chris.
Congratulations, Sam, on a great victory. Was it a tough one for you?
Well, not really. The car just ran real nice all day long, and it wasn't a real big job. Just sit there and just hope she stayed hooked up all day.
When you started, did you think you'd dominate the race the way you did?
No, we knew the car ran real well, but we didn't know it would run quite that quick until we did get out with all other cars. We just got this new engine in late yesterday afternoon, got a chance to run about 3 or 4 laps, and we didn't really know what the car would do until we started the race today.
Which driver gave you the most trouble in the race?
Well, I guess Petty was running real great right there in the beginning of the race, and I think he made an unscheduled stop, and I don't know, and then, of course, the other Dodge Charger driven by Leroy Yarborough ran real well. In fact, we could run quite well together. I don't know what happened, but he must have had some problem.
Sam, we see these pipes here. This is part of your cool suit. Did it do the job today?
Yes, it really did. Without that, I don't think I could have stayed in all day with all the windows open.
Well, you look cooler than we did, and we stood out all day.
It was nice and comfortable, sure was.
Well, congratulations again. Sam McQuagg, winner of the Firecracker 400.
Thank you very much, Chris, and congratulations all around are sure in order for the 29-year-old former carpenter from Georgia, Sam McQuagg, Rookie of the Year last year, and he's in the big time now, huh?
He certainly is. He drove a great race and certainly deserved to win. But a lot of credit has to go to Darrell Derringer driving that Comet into second place.
Right, and Curtis Turner, who did so well with the Chevelle, also prepared by Smokey Unick.
That's wonderful. I like to see a lot of different kinds of automobiles because it creates tremendous interest in racing.
That's sure what we saw here again today at the Firecracker 400 in Daytona Beach. Again, the winner was Sam McQuagg. Roger, our thanks to you as always for a fine job.
Well, thank you, Jim. It's a pleasure to work with you.
Today's videotaped remote pickups were by WFTV Orlando and by WXYZ-TV in Detroit. Don't forget next week on ABC's Wide World of Sports, the National Surfing Championships from California and the World All-Round Pocket Billiards Championship from Johnson City, Illinois. And now this is Jim McKay, along with Roger Ward and Chris Economaki saying so long from Daytona Beach.